Rome, 451 BCE. In the Roman Forum Square, a plebeian is violently dragged to prison by a patrician for an unpaid debt. But this time, something is different. For the first time in Rome's history, the plebeian raises a bronze tablet and declares, "I know my rights." The story of the 12 Tables begins in a Rome divided by class struggle. In the mid-5th century BCE, the young republic faced one of its greatest internal challenges. The streets of Rome echoed with the growing discontent of the plebeians, who had long suffered under a system of unwritten laws known only to the patrician elite. Picture Rome in this turbulent era, a city where justice was not blind, but rather wore the colors of patrician privilege. The patricians, descendants of Rome's founding families, held not only political power but also monopolized legal knowledge. They alone knew the interpretations of laws passed down through oral tradition, using this exclusive knowledge as a weapon to maintain their dominance over the plebeian class. The plebeians, though free citizens and the backbone of Rome's growing military might, found themselves at the mercy of arbitrary legal interpretations. A plebeian could be imprisoned for debt, their property seized, or their rights violated without clear recourse to justice. The unwritten nature of laws meant that legal decisions could vary widely, often favoring patrician interests. This social powder keg was further ignited by Rome's rapid expansion and economic development. As trade flourished and the city grew, the need for clear, written laws became increasingly apparent. The plebeians, growing in both numbers and economic importance, began to demand transparency and equality before the law. The tension reached its breaking point when the plebeians, led by brave tribunes, threatened to paralyze the city through civil disobedience. They demanded a written code of laws that would bind both patrician and plebeian alike. This was not merely a legal reform, it was a revolution in how Roman society conceived of justice itself. The patrician Senate, recognizing the gravity of the situation, finally yielded to the pressure. In an unprecedented move, they agreed to the creation of a commission, the Decemviri, charged with crafting Rome's first written legal code. Drawing inspiration from Greek law and Roman custom, these 10 men would create what would become the foundation of Roman law, the 12 Tables. This moment marked a fundamental shift in human legal history. For the first time in Rome, law would no longer be the secret knowledge of a privileged few, but rather a public declaration of rights and responsibilities accessible to all citizens. The 12 Tables would go on to influence not only Roman law, but the development of legal systems throughout the Western world. Remember to like this video and subscribe to Legacy of Empires to explore more fascinating chapters of ancient history that shaped our modern world. Together, let's uncover how the past continues to influence our present and future. Picture yourself walking through the Roman Forum in the 5th century BCE. The early morning sun bathes the magnificent marble columns in golden light, while the echoes of legal debates and civic discussions fill the air. The worn stone paths beneath your feet tell tales of countless citizens who have walked these same routes, seeking justice and counsel in the heart of the Republic. In the center of this bustling square stands perhaps the most revolutionary display of Roman legal history. 12 gleaming bronze panels, each one carefully mounted and positioned to catch the sun's rays. Their deeply engraved letters stand out in sharp relief, a deliberate design choice ensuring that even those with limited literacy could trace the shapes of these laws with their fingers. Citizens gather in small groups around these tablets, some reading aloud to others, some engaged in heated debates about their interpretation. The archaeological record of the 12 Tables tells a fascinating story of preservation and loss. The original bronze tablets, displayed so prominently in the Forum, met a tragic fate during the Gallic sack of Rome in 390 BCE. When Brennus and his Celtic warriors swept through the city, these precious symbols of Roman justice were lost among countless other treasures. Yet their destruction did not diminish their importance. If anything, it enhanced their legendary status. Archaeological discoveries across the former Roman Empire reveal the extraordinary lengths taken to preserve and propagate these laws. Excavations have unearthed fragments of later replicas in various materials. Bronze fragments discovered in colonial settlements from Britannia to North Africa, bearing the distinctive letter forms of legal inscriptions. Marble copies found in provincial forum squares, demonstrating how widely these laws were distributed. Clay tablet fragments used for teaching purposes in Roman schools. Traces of wall inscriptions in public buildings, making the laws accessible to everyday citizens. Perhaps most intriguing are the archaeological finds in Herculaneum and Pompeii, where carbonized scrolls containing legal commentaries on the 12 tables provide invaluable insights into how these laws were interpreted and applied in daily life. These preserved texts demonstrate how deeply the tables were woven into the fabric of Roman legal education and practice. The Romans' dedication to preserving and displaying these laws speaks to their fundamental importance in Roman society. Unlike many ancient legal codes that were kept in temples or restricted to priestly classes, the 12 tables were intentionally placed in the most public of spaces. Archaeological evidence shows that even in the smallest provincial towns, copies of these laws were prominently displayed, often accompanied by public seating areas where citizens could gather to discuss and debate their meaning. Modern archaeological techniques have revealed fascinating details about how these tablets were created. Analysis of surviving fragments shows sophisticated metallurgical techniques used to ensure the bronze would withstand centuries of exposure. The depth and angle of the engraved letters were carefully calculated to remain legible even as the metal weathered. Through the mists of time, we follow the intertwining stories of two men whose lives embody the dramatic transformation of Roman law. Meet Lucius, a young plebeian whose burning ambition to master the law reflects the aspirations of his entire social class. Despite the prejudices and barriers of his time, Lucius represents the changing face of Roman justice, a system slowly opening itself to talent regardless of birth. Opposite him stands Claudius, a patrician decurion whose initial resistance to legal reform mirrors the conservative fears of Rome's traditional elite. His journey from staunch opponent to reluctant supporter of legal codification illustrates the profound social changes reshaping the Republic. But the story of the 12 tables involves far more than these symbolic figures. Let us meet the real historical champions and opponents of Rome's first written laws. Appius Claudius Crassus emerges as perhaps the most controversial figure in this legal revolution. As the leading Decemvir, he shepherded the creation of the first 10 tables through a stormy political process. His brilliant legal mind and political acumen made him the natural choice to lead the Decemviri, the 10-man commission charged with creating the code. Yet power would prove corrupting. His later attempt to maintain his position through force would nearly derail the entire project of legal reform. The spark that lit this legal revolution came from Gaius Terentilius Harsa, a tribune of the plebs whose courage in 462 BCE changed Roman history. Picture him standing before a crowd of fellow plebeians, his voice rising above the forum's noise as he first proposed the radical idea of written laws. His original bill, the Lex Terentilia, called for a commission to codify the laws governing consular power. Though initially defeated, his proposal planted the seed that would grow into the 12 tables. One of the most fascinating episodes in this story involves the commission sent to Greece. 3 Roman delegates embarked on a remarkable journey to study the laws of Solon in Athens and the legal systems of other Greek cities. This diplomatic mission, lasting a year, brought Greek legal concepts to Rome, though the Romans would ultimately create something uniquely their own. The commissioners' names are lost to history, but their journey symbolizes Rome's willingness to learn from other civilizations while maintaining its distinct character. We also meet Lucius Valerius and Marcus Horatius, the consuls who restored order after the Decemviri's fall and ensured the final 2 tables were completed. Their legislative reforms, the Valerio-Horatian laws, guaranteed the legal rights won through this struggle would be preserved. Behind these leading figures stood countless others: the plebeian activists who risked everything to demand justice, the scribes who carefully engraved the laws in bronze, and the first generation of legal interpreters who helped citizens understand their new rights. Each of these characters, whether real or representative, played their part in a drama that transformed not just Roman law, but the very concept of justice in Western civilization. Their struggles, failures, and ultimate triumph remind us that legal rights we take for granted today were won through the courage and persistence of those who came before. The 12 tables didn't merely change Roman law, they transformed Roman society itself. Let's explore how these revolutionary laws reshaped daily life in the Republic through real scenarios that would have played out in the Forum. Picture a typical morning in the Roman Forum. A crowd gathers around as a debt dispute unfolds. Before the tables, this scene might have ended in the creditor claiming the debtor as property. But now, the presiding magistrate refers directly to Table 3, which established clear procedures for debt settlement. The law now mandates a 30-day grace period for debtors to settle their obligations and strictly regulates the conditions under which a creditor can claim physical custody. The principle of equality before the law stands as perhaps the table's most revolutionary innovation. Consider this scene. A patrician merchant and a plebeian farmer dispute over damaged goods. In pre-tables Rome, the patrician's social status would have virtually guaranteed his victory. But now both parties must follow the same legal procedures, present evidence, and submit to the same judgments. Table I's famous declaration that court summons apply equally to all citizens fundamentally altered the power dynamic between social classes. Property rights and inheritance laws brought unprecedented stability to Roman family life. We see this through the case of a widow seeking to protect her inheritance. Table V clearly defines her rights, preventing her late husband's family from claiming her property. The same table revolutionized women's legal status by establishing their right to make wills and maintain control over their dowries. The table's regulation of contracts transformed Roman commerce. Imagine a bustling marketplace where a verbal contract is being sealed. Table VI's declaration that spoken agreements are binding, when one makes a bond or a conveyance, what he has said in words shall hold, created the legal foundation for Rome's complex commercial economy. This same table protected buyers by requiring sellers to disclose known defects in their merchandise. Family law underwent particular scrutiny. Consider a father invoking his traditional paternal authority to arrange his daughter's marriage. The tables now required the daughter's consent, marking one of the first legal restrictions on the previously absolute power of the paterfamilias. Similarly, Table 4 regulated adoption procedures and guardianship rights, protecting the interests of orphaned children. Legal procedure itself became more transparent and predictable. A typical court day would now follow strictly defined steps: the summoning of parties, presentation of evidence, specific time limits for arguments, clear guidelines for judgment and appeals. The tables also revolutionized criminal law. Take the case of a man accused of theft. Rather than facing arbitrary punishment, Table 8 prescribed specific penalties based on the nature of the crime. A nocturnal thief could be lawfully killed, while a daylight thief faced monetary penalties, unless they used a weapon, in which case capital punishment was permitted. Perhaps most significantly, the tables standardized legal language and interpretation. When disputes arose about the meaning of laws, everyone could refer to the same written text. This standardization laid the groundwork for Roman jurisprudence and the development of professional legal expertise. The practical impact of these laws extended far beyond the forum. They influenced everything from construction regulations, requiring specific distances between buildings, to agricultural practices, protecting farmers from theft of crops. Even children learned the tables by heart in school, ensuring that knowledge of the law permeated Roman society. Continue your journey through Roman legal history with Legacy of Empires as we explore how these ancient laws continue to influence modern legal systems worldwide. The 12 tables serve as a mirror reflecting the complex social fabric of ancient Rome. They didn't merely establish laws, they codified the very essence of Roman civilization, capturing both traditional values and emerging social concepts in bronze and stone. The power of the paterfamilias stands as one of the most distinctive features of Roman society enshrined in the tables. Imagine a Roman household where the father holds the power of life and death over his family members, the notorious ius vitae necisc. Yet the tables began to place subtle limits on this ancient authority. While acknowledging the father's tremendous power, they required 3 attempts to sell a son into slavery before paternal authority was severed, showing the first signs of legal protection for family members. Private property held near sacred status in Roman culture. The tables meticulously detailed property rights, reflecting a society where ownership defined both status and citizenship. Consider the law's treatment of adverse possession. If someone occupied land continuously for 2 years, or other property for 1 year, they could claim ownership. This sophisticated concept reveals a culture deeply invested in the relationship between people and their possessions. Religious observance intertwined inseparably with legal proceedings. The tables prescribed specific days when court proceedings could occur, dies fasti, and when they were forbidden, dies nefasti. Every legal action began with ritual, every oath invoked the gods, and perjury was considered not just a legal offense, but a religious transgression. The tables codified these religious elements while simultaneously creating a more secular framework for justice. Social hierarchy remained deeply embedded in Roman law, yet the tables introduced revolutionary concepts of legal equality. Take marriage laws. While maintaining distinction between social classes, the tables recognized certain rights regardless of social status. The famous provision allowing marriage between patricians and plebeians would eventually become law, marking a significant social transformation. Roman citizenship, that most prized of statuses, received careful attention. The tables defined citizens' rights and responsibilities with unprecedented clarity. A citizen's right to appeal, their protection from arbitrary punishment, and their ability to participate in legal proceedings. All these fundamental aspects of citizenship found expression in the tables. Daily life reflected these legal principles in countless ways. Markets operated under strict rules about honest trading and fair weights. Construction followed detailed regulations about property boundaries. Funeral practices balanced religious requirements with public health concerns. Agricultural cycles influenced legal deadlines and court schedules. Family celebrations and ceremonies adhered to legally recognized forms. The tables also reveal fascinating details about Roman social attitudes, the emphasis on public reputation, with severe penalties for slander, the importance of neighborly obligations in rural communities, the balance between individual rights and community needs, the special protection afforded to harvests and agricultural boundaries, the complex web of patronage and client relationships. Perhaps most remarkably, the tables show a society in transition. While preserving ancient customs, they introduced revolutionary concepts that would shape Western law for millennia. They maintained respect for tradition while creating space for social mobility and legal innovation. The concept of debt bondage illustrates this tension perfectly. While the tables preserved the creditor's right to enslave debtors, they introduced procedural protections and limits on physical punishment. This balance between traditional authority and emerging rights characterizes the entire code. The morning sun casts long shadows across the forum as citizens gather for what would become one of the most memorable legal confrontations in early Republican Rome. The air is thick with tension as Lucius, the young plebeian who spent years studying the newly codified laws, prepares to defend his uncle against Claudius's accusations of property theft. Just 3 years earlier, Lucius had been a simple craftsman, watching helplessly as patricians manipulated unwritten laws to their advantage. But the publication of the 12 tables changed everything. Night after night, he studied the bronze tablets by torchlight, memorizing every provision, understanding every nuance. The case itself seems straightforward at first. Claudius claims Lucius's uncle stole valuable merchandise from his warehouse. Before the written laws, such an accusation from a patrician against a plebeian would have meant certain conviction. But today is different. The crowd watches in stunned silence as Lucius approaches the judicial magistrate. Drawing upon Table 2's provisions regarding evidence and testimony, Lucius methodically dismantles Claudius's case. He invokes the requirement for multiple witnesses, challenges the timeline presented, and demands the production of documented proof. The young plebeian's voice rings clear across the forum as he cites specific provisions, his finger tracing the very words engraved on the bronze tablets standing nearby. Claudius, accustomed to winning cases through social privilege alone, finds himself caught in his own contradictions. His witnesses, when questioned under the strict procedures outlined in the tables, provide conflicting accounts. The physical evidence he promised to produce never materializes. The turning point comes when Lucius reveals documents showing his uncle was actually in Ostia, conducting business with several reputable merchants, on the day of the alleged theft. The written contracts, now protected under Table 6, carry legal weight that not even a patrician's word can overcome. As the magistrate pronounces his judgment, acquitting Lucius's uncle of all charges, the forum erupts in cheers. This is more than a simple legal victory. It represents the triumph of written law over privilege, of justice over social status. Claudius, humbled by the experience, begins to understand that the new legal system, which he once opposed, actually protects everyone, patrician and plebeian alike. The case becomes a landmark moment, cited by future legal scholars as the first major example of how the 12 tables leveled the playing field between social classes. It demonstrates how knowledge of written law becomes a powerful weapon in the hands of common citizens, breaking the patrician monopoly on justice. More than a story of personal triumph, this confrontation marks the moment when Rome truly begins its transformation from a society ruled by privilege to one governed by law. The young plebeian who dared to learn the law, and the patrician who learned to respect it, together symbolize the dawn of a new era in Roman justice. The 12 Tables' influence echoes through the corridors of legal history, spanning more than 2 millennia of human civilization. Their impact ripples outward from ancient Rome to the courtrooms and constitutions of today's world. In the centuries following their creation, the tables became the foundation upon which Roman legal scholars built an unprecedented legal system. The great jurists of the classical period, Gaius, Ulpian, and Papinian, consistently returned to the tables' principles as they developed more sophisticated legal concepts. Their commentaries on the table's original provisions helped create the comprehensive system of Roman civil law that would later be codified under Justinian. Consider how the table's principles of property rights evolved into modern concepts of ownership and possession. When a modern court rules on adverse possession or prescriptive rights, it follows principles first articulated in Table 6. The Roman concept of usicapio, where possession over time could create ownership rights, remains fundamental to property law across the globe. The table's influence on European legal development proved particularly profound during the medieval period. As universities arose in Bologna, Paris, and Oxford, scholars rediscovered Roman law through the tables and their subsequent interpretations. The table's clear, practical approach to legal problems provided a model for emerging national legal systems. The Napoleonic Code of 1804, perhaps the most influential modern legal code, bears unmistakable marks of the table's influence. Napoleon's insistence on clear, accessible language mirrors the table's original purpose of making law comprehensible to ordinary citizens. The French Civil Code's systematic organization of private law rights and obligations follows patterns established by the tables. Modern constitutional principles trace their lineage directly to concepts first articulated in the tables. Due process of law emerged from the table's insistence on proper legal procedures and the right to defend oneself. Equal protection under the law reflects the table's revolutionary concept of uniform legal standards for all citizens. Protection against arbitrary punishment derives from the table's specific penalties for specific crimes. Property rights and contract law in modern legal systems build upon foundations laid in the tables. In contemporary law, the table's influence manifests in countless ways. When a judge demands proper notice be given to defendants, they echo Table I's summons requirements. Modern bankruptcy laws, while far more debtor-friendly, evolved from the table's debt collection procedures. Even family law retains concepts first articulated in the table's provisions on inheritance and guardianship. The table's emphasis on public accessibility of law remains particularly relevant today. As legal systems grapple with making law comprehensible in the digital age, they face challenges similar to those addressed by the table's public display in the forum. Modern movements for plain language in legal documents and public access to legal information continue this ancient tradition. In international law, the table's influence extends to fundamental concepts of legal harmonization and universal principles. When modern nations work to create uniform commercial codes or standardize legal procedures, they follow a path first blazed by the table's standardization of Roman law. Legal education worldwide still reflects the table's impact. First-year law students often begin their studies with principles first articulated in this ancient code. The method of analyzing cases through careful attention to statutory language derives from Roman jurisprudential techniques developed to interpret the tables. Perhaps most significantly, the table's core message, that law should be public, comprehensible, and equally applicable to all, remains a cornerstone of modern democratic legal systems. When contemporary societies debate legal reform, they often unknowingly echo debates that surrounded the table's creation 25 centuries ago. The legacy of the 12 Tables reminds us that the fundamental principles of justice, fairness, transparency, and equality before the law are not modern innovations but ancient aspirations that each generation must strive to fulfill. 2.5 millennia after their creation, the 12 Tables stand as a testament to humanity's enduring quest for justice and equality. As we conclude our journey through this pivotal moment in legal history, let us reflect on the profound lessons it offers our modern world. Picture again that morning in 451 BCE, when the first bronze tablets were unveiled in the Roman Forum. The sun's rays striking the freshly engraved letters symbolized more than just a new legal code. They illuminated a path forward for human civilization. From the turmoil of class struggle emerged something revolutionary: the idea that law should be visible, knowable, and equal for all. The story of the 12 Tables reminds us that legal progress often emerges from social conflict. When the plebeians demanded written laws, they were fighting not just for legal rights, but for human dignity. Their struggle forces us to ask, in our own time, whose voices are crying out for justice? What unwritten rules in our society still privilege some over others? Consider how the Tables transformed Roman society. A system of secret, arbitrary laws gave way to public, predictable justice. Merchants could conduct business with confidence, knowing their contracts held legal weight. Families could plan for the future, understanding their inheritance rights. Citizens could defend themselves in court, armed with knowledge of their legal rights. These changes parallel modern movements for transparency in government and accessibility of legal information. The Table's emphasis on practical solutions to everyday problems offers another vital lesson. Rather than abstract philosophical principles, they focused on real issues facing Roman citizens: debt, property disputes, family conflicts, and commercial transactions. This pragmatic approach reminds us that effective law must address the concrete needs of ordinary people. Perhaps most remarkably, the Tables demonstrated that law could be both conservative and revolutionary. While preserving many traditional Roman practices, they fundamentally altered the relationship between citizens and justice. They showed how society could change profoundly while maintaining stability, a lesson as relevant today as it was in ancient Rome. The Tables' legacy lives on not just in legal principles, but in the very idea that justice should be accessible to all. When we post laws online, translate legal documents into plain language, or provide public defenders for the accused, we follow a path first carved by those bronze tablets in the Roman Forum. As we face our own era's challenges, digital rights, environmental justice, artificial intelligence regulation, the Tables remind us that legal systems can adapt to profound social changes while preserving fundamental principles of justice. They show us that law, at its best, serves not to divide society, but to unite it under common principles of fairness and equity. What would our own society's 12 Tables look like? What fundamental rights and responsibilities would we engrave for future generations? Perhaps in answering these questions, we can better understand both the wisdom of our ancestors and our own aspirations for justice. Thank you for joining us on this journey through one of history's pivotal moments. If you found value in understanding how the 12 Tables shaped our legal world, share this video with others who might appreciate this remarkable story. What aspects of ancient Roman law surprised you most? Can you see echoes of the 12 Tables in your country's laws? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe to Legacy of Empires and activate notifications to continue exploring the fascinating connections between ancient wisdom and modern life. Next week, we'll investigate how ancient Mesopotamian law codes influenced the development of civilization. Together, let's keep discovering how the past illuminates our path to the future.